Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, gotta give a big shout out to our man, David Hatch. David, you are absolutely the best. He comes in, I see him very often. He gives us all kinds of fun one-liners, zingers, as he calls them. We can always count on him to be there on a live stream and throw in a nice zinger towards me, or towards Brooks, or Jelani, or Jay Strick, or anybody, and just hit the nail on the head, and just cut us off right when we need to be. David, you're the man. Thank you so much for supporting us at patreon.com/PCP. We really do appreciate it. Now let's get right into it with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week comes from Boom Studios, and it's The Red Mother number 10. I love this book. I have loved this book since issue number 1. The Red Mother is an excellent example of less is more. Every single line, word of dialogue, piece of color, every single bit of this book is meticulously placed in a very purposeful way. There is nothing wasted in The Red Mother. I'm loving it. It has been accused of being a little bit of a slow burn. I think it's had a nice pace. This really helped enhance the eerie mood and atmosphere of the story. Right now in issue 10, it's ramping it up. The pressure in this book was already high with issue number 1. And each issue, what it's been able to do is build up that tension, build up that suspense. And now literally the pot's about to boil over and it's about to erupt and explode. And the first bit of eruptions happened in issue number 10. I loved this issue. I think it was well worth the wait for what happens in this. They're still revealing things, still a lot of stuff in mystery, but it's the character work. It's how the character, the emotions of the character, the journeys of the characters. That's what guides this book through. It's not driven by plot. It's not driven by events. It's driven by character. And I love it so much. And the artwork is meticulous and beautiful and elegant, and like I said, there's not a wasted line, word, or color in this book. The Red Mother continues to shine. Issue number 10 from Boom Studios makes the pick of the week. Let's continue on with Boom. Boom's got a really solid week this week, including Power Rangers number 1. So, there were 2 books, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Go Go Power Rangers. Let me explain this. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was set in, let's just call it, present day. Go-Go Power Rangers was set in the past. They have now caught up to each other. You can say it that way. And now what's happened is there's one unifying Power Ranger book, but split up into 2. It's kind of like what Hickman did with Fantastic Four and FF. So you have Mighty Morphin, which came out, a couple weeks ago? Was it last week? Now we have Power Rangers. So they're actually telling one story, but from 2 different sides and 2 different perspectives. So you will see, for instance, there is a variant cover for this that says Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue number 57. Just like Mighty Morphin number 1 had a variant that said Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 56. They're trying to say that you can read it that way. Now those variant covers are a bit confusing. Power Rangers number 1, though, is the series that's going to focus on the Omega Rangers. That's Jason, Zach, and Trini. In Power Rangers lore, they left at the very beginning of Season 2. They were replaced by 3 new people. They went off to some kind of like youth peace conference or something like that, right? It was bogus. They actually went off and to become the Omega Rangers. And they are dealing with a big threat on the horizon in both of these books. And the Omega Rangers are actually taking a more, let's say, proactive approach. Power Ranger fans are going to love what happens in this issue. Some really fun, exciting things, a really interesting new dynamic and new spin on what's been going on. Ryan Parrott and company doing a great job, and the artwork is phenomenal. Francisco Martorino, probably messed that name up, but it doesn't matter because the artwork is fantastic. Power Rangers number 1 shined. I thought this shined as one of the best superhero comic books of the week, if not month. 7 Secrets number 4 is here from Tom Taylor, Danielle D. Niculo, Walter Baiamonte. I've been really liking Seven Secrets. Issue 4 is no exception. This is an incredibly action-packed issue. The artist does a fantastic job of cranking up that dynamic flow of energy for the action scenes. There are revelations. There are secrets that are revealed in here. Not any of these 7 secrets or whatever, but just about the characters, about this this organization where they're tasked to guard the 7 secrets, the 7 biggest secrets of the universe or whatever, right? But I'm really liking it. They're doing great character work through subtle little bits of dialogue here and there, events, actions. There's something that they reveal about one character in this book just through the person's action. That is sophisticated storytelling, at least in my opinion, from a comic book. Tom Taylor's doing a great job of building up this world, building up these characters, and keeping me completely interested. 7 Secrets number 4 out this week. Really like that issue. We Only Find Them When They're Dead number 3. I'm really liking the story of We Only Find Them When They're Dead. Basically, the idea is that there are these autopsy ships. They go out into deep space where they find these dead celestial godlike beings, and they literally just scavenge their bodies for parts, for meats, for proteins, for energy, things like that, right? So what happens when one captain of one roguish type ship decides, I want to discover the mystery of why we always find them when they're dead? And he goes a little bit further than they're allowed to go. And it leads to some crazy tension. So you got some really great character work going on still, but mostly this is driven by that concept and by the events of the story. I like this issue. I like the story a lot. I like the artwork, but I will say this. I love the color work, and We Only Find Them When They're Dead, but there is something about the colors that are muddying up the images for me. I noticed it in issue number 2, and I'm noticing it in issue number 3, and it's being very distracting, to be honest with you. I love this book. I think it's a great concept. I like the line work. I like the coloring, except for the fact that the coloring somehow seems to obscure the line work. It seems to make the book muddy, a bit too dark at times when it shouldn't be. It's colored in a very vibrant type way, but it comes across as muddy, murky, and a little too dark at times, and there's just something doing it. Maybe it's because they're putting like light colors in the foreground and then dark, but they're not, it's not creating a cohesive image for me. That's my fault with this book right now. Is it something to do with the coloring? At least that's what I can pick down. Honestly though, aside from that, I'm liking this book. I like the concept. There's some big epic moments in here that I really like. It's fun, though it is a bit unclear what exactly happens at the end. You have to kind of study it for a little bit because the coloring is seeming to obscure the art in some such way. But anyway, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, number 3 out this week. Let's jump over to DC Comics. We've got Punchline. Punchline number 1. This is a one-shot comic book, $4.99 cover price. It's written by James Tynion IV and Sam Johns. So it says Johns there. It's not Jeff Johns. Sam Johns. So Sam Johns is really the writer of this book. James Tynion probably came up with some ideas and let them know, like, they probably came up with the plot together. You got Mirko Andolfo on the artwork. I know a lot of people are fans of her work. The interiors are not going to be quite what you're used to from her cover work, I would say. It feels a bit more rushed, a bit more work for hire, but it was still fine. The artwork was fine, and it got the job done. The lettering is really, really tiny, and it's, I know some people were talking about the tiny lettering in Three Jokers. If that bothered you, it's probably going to bother you in Punchline. That's one thing that stood out for me. But the artwork was fair, and the story's pretty decent, I guess. It picks up after the Joker War. Punchline has been arrested, and we've already seen in a page of Batman where she's kind of making this attempt to become like a fan favorite character amongst the populace of Gotham and try to get sympathy and spin events in certain ways. And that's what they're dealing with here. They're going into her history. They bring back Harper and her brother, and I think that's really, really super cool. And the way they tie it into Punchline is kind of interesting, and I'm excited to see how it develops because this is a lot of setup for what some plans I'm sure Tynion have in 2021 for the Batman books. So if you're a big fan of Punchline, this is necessary. And if you're reading along with Batman, it's pretty necessary just because it's setting up some interesting stuff. But I did like it. I didn't think it was a bad issue at all. I like the revelations about some of her origins, some of her motivations, and a little bit about what her plans are going forward and how it's tied into everything else. Punchline number 1. It's a one-shot comic. And then we have Dark Knight's Death Metal, Infinite Hour, Exxxtreme. I already love this book just based on the title alone. It's ridiculous. It's obnoxious. It's boisterous. It's loud. It's in your face. It's exactly what Dark Knight's death metal should be. So in the pages of Dark Knight's death metal, we know that Lobo has been sent on a secret mission by Lex Luthor to go find something called death metal. This is the journey. This is him on the quest to find the death metal, and it is absurd. It is ridiculous. I loved this book. Now, it's got 3 different sections, 3 chapters. It all tells one whole story, but the 3 chapters have different creators. The first one is Frank Thierry and Tyler Kirkham. It was magnificent, and we get introduced to the Batman who frags. Seriously? That's pretty freaking cool. Then you got Clunan and Rags Morales, and then you got Dennis Cowan and Sam Humphries. Each story gets a little bit less impactful, a little bit less fun, a little bit less wild, and then it kind of peters out. Unfortunately, as you're reading the book, it kind of peters out. Starts off super strong, and it starts kind of petering off. This is not 100% necessary, I'm sure, but it does set up a lot of stuff, just like all these one-shots have done, that I'm sure Snyder's going to grab and run with. Seriously. Some stuff at the end here, there's a clue that's giving you like, oh, what are they trying to do? But I'm loving it. I like it. Love the cover. And the first chapter is worth it almost alone. It is a one-shot, $5.99 comic book, but I'm loving it. If you're reading death metal, why not? I'm having so much fun with this book, and that's the word I want to highlight here is fun. That's what death metal is to me. It's just fun. Detective Comics 1030. This was an alright issue. You actually have Bilquis Evely doing the artwork. She does a great job here. I like the art a lot. She was the artist on the Dreaming with Simon Spurrier. And Peter Tomasi's actually getting the book into a decent direction right now. We're still dealing with this mirror guy, but a little bit less about that and a little bit more about what's going on with Damian. What's going on with the relationship between Damian and Bruce. I'm not reading Teen Titans, but apparently him and Bruce have had a major falling out post-death of Alfred, and that kind of makes sense. Apparently he's had a falling out with the Teen Titans, and this is now putting a little bit of the focus on what is Damian up to. Batman's worried about it, and you got all this other stuff going on. There's obviously building up some stuff that's going to be a little bit more unraveled, I guess, in the future state stuff with this new mayoral candidate or whatever, but I actually like this issue, and Detective Comics is a book I've kind of been down on lately, but at least with this arc, I'm a lot more interested and compelled by it because it is focusing on Damian, on Bruce, on that relationship, broken and cracked as it may be at this moment, and Peter Tomasi does a great job when it comes to the father-son dynamic between Batman and Robin. Superman number 27 is here. It's an okay issue, I guess. It's just a lot of the same thing over and over. What Bendis has done in these last few issues, a lot of people could have done in half of a comic book, to be honest with you. It is sometimes nauseating, and it's even more ridiculously frustrating that Bendis on Superman gets to work with the best artists. And Ivan Reis is a guy who I've been begging to just be the Superman artist for a long time, and it's this Bendis run. But you do have an old school Kryptonian villain make a brief reappearance here, and it's cool, but nothing gets done with it. This is okay. It's got great art. The story's just kind of It's not the worst issue of Superman lately. It's not as bad as Action Comics, but it's still not pleasing me. I'm not liking Superman. But Bendis is almost off. We only got one more month left. It's about to all wrap up. Thankfully. The Flash 765 is here, continuing this ring alchemy story type thing. There are some clever ideas here, but once again, it just feels like a filler story. And we've just come off of an exceptional, extremely long-term run from Joshua Williamson that had great direction throughout. So this is fun and it's decent, and there's some cool twists and turns as we're figuring it out, but it just kind of feels run-of-the-mill, nothing exceptionary, a bit mediocre. So it's fine. It seems like it's a placeholder story by this new creative team. Then we go into Future State, and then maybe they'll bring in a new team and a new direction for Flash. We shall see. But right now, it's just filler, I think, for the rest of the year. But anyway, Flash 765 is out this week, and it was okay. The Green Lantern Season 2, number 9 is here from Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp with a color assist by Steve Oliff. Loved this issue. I was incredibly confused by the last issue because the structure was done in a very weird and interesting way. Now we're getting a little bit back to basics here, and when I say that, I mean back to the the zany Green Lantern, you know, like almost like 80s UK 2000 AD inspired Grant Morrison, Liam Sharp goodness. Great artwork here, interesting concepts on the story. We're getting multiversal again. That's something Grant does incredibly well, and I'm loving the Green Lantern. Issue number 9 of season 2 is out, and I think it only has one issue left, because there's one issue and then Future State, and that's probably gonna be it. American Vampire, 1976, number 2. So I've only read like the first 4 books of American Vampire, so I'm obviously way far behind, but I really did kind of enjoy issue number 1, so I decided why not just go on issue number 2. First of all, Raphael Albuquerque's artwork is amazing. Great detail, great line work. It's got gravity and solidarity to it that I really, really thought that was great. Scott Snyder does an okay job here. There's a lot of exposition, a lot of explainy stuff. Sometimes Snyder can do that. He did it with like the entire last issue of The Wake. He does it a lot in American Vampire that I have read. But what it is starting to do is spoil some big things for me in the American Vampire saga. So I think I'm going to dip out after this issue number 2. But just let it be known that this is the final American Vampire saga, at least as we are aware. The final one, 9-part series. This is issue number 2. If you like American Vampire, this is it. This is the grand finale. If you haven't been reading American Vampire, don't start here. Why would you do that? It's terrible. And if you're behind, if you're like literally like 4 or 5 books behind, and I'm not talking about issues, I'm talking about volumes. If you're that far behind like I am, don't read this. You're going to ruin it. Anyway, I read it to let you know that. But American Vampire 1976, it's decent. Let's jump over to Marvel, where we have Taskmaster number 1, a new 5-issue miniseries from Marvel. This is the first issue. Now, initially, this was set up much like the current Black Widow run to come out earlier in the year when Black Widow was supposed to come out in theaters. Then it got pushed back to November when Black Widow was supposed to come into theaters again. Well, Black Widow's still not here, and they're just like, you know what, we're done waiting, because it would be really silly to put out a book next year with Empire ads in it. But anyway, Taskmaster number 1 is here. Of course, this villain is featured in the upcoming MCU Black Widow film, so you do have a little bit of tie-ins there, I guess, but Taskmaster is a fan-favorite character. He's not one of my favorites. This one kind of takes that silly, kooky approach that they took back in the Udon days or whatever, if you remember when they were doing Taskmaster. That's not my favorite type thing. I'm not the biggest Taskmaster fan. I think he should be treated with a little bit more... he should be treated like as if he's a bit more dangerous. He's always a little too silly and kooky for me. This goes right in that vein. So if you like that approach to Taskmaster, I would encourage you to check this one out. But this one just didn't really do much for me. But like I said, I'm not necessarily the hugest Taskmaster fan, and I hate it when they kind of take the more goofy approach to the character. And that's what they're doing here. That being said, it's an interesting setup to a story. Evidently, Maria Hill, they've already spoiled this in solicitations. This is what the solicitations say. Maria Hill is dead, quite possibly at the hands of Taskmaster. Does he have to prove his innocence, or did it really get done by him? Who knows? Anyway, hardcore Taskmaster fans, this is definitely for you. But if you are feeling the squeeze and you want to like drop something off or not pick something up, maybe this one's not quite for you. If it's not quite for me. But if you're a Taskmaster fan, if you like that kooky, silly Taskmaster stuff, check it out. We got 3 chapters of Ten of Swords. Let's get into it. Marauders number 15 is here with part 14. They kind of do a thing at the beginning of this that I don't like. I thought it was kind of like a waste. You know, people are already kind of complaining that there are too many parts in Ten of Swords, and when you waste pages, kind of basically, without spoiling anything, if you waste pages just trying to play a trick on the reader, it can usually bite you in the ass, you know, and I think that's what happens here with Marauders. The tone all of a sudden goes from incredibly serious to very goofy and funny. Now, I guess that kind of started in the last issue of Marauders, the last chapter, which had a cliffhanger ending, which leads right into the beginning of this. But it's some setup stuff and interesting things, but I'll tell you what, one cool thing about this issue is that the first battle is about to be started. The first sword fights are about to happen, because we got another chapter. It's Excalibur number 14 with part 15 of Ten of Swords, and the sword battles start happening. And they're not quite what you're going to expect. And I was really kind of taken aback by the silly nature of Ten of Swords now. This is a story that's been set up to be something groundbreaking, revolutionary, dangerous, like a really somber type experience, and then they kind of go into fun territory with it, and that's a weird kind of twist in idea, and the way that they're actually doing the battles, I just don't think I'm down for it, but that's my expectation, so I'm gonna let it pass through. We're gonna see how they wrap it up, but I'm gonna tell you this straight up. I did not like this week's Ten of Swords books. The other one is Wolverine number 7. I really didn't like this one. There are elements of this. There are elements of all 3 of these books that I liked. But overall, I found that there was an incredible tonal shift that happened. It seems like the event's not given the serious weight that it should be, or that it has already been given. And it gets a bit too zany for my taste. And y'all, 3 chapters in one day, and I was not pleased with any of them. There are moments that pleased me, but I was like, whoa. You know, I've been one of the biggest defenders of Ten of Swords. I've been loving it. But these 3 issues, what the hell is that? We got to talk about this. Rockin' Robbie Live, Sunday night. Let's talk about this. What's going on? Strange Academy number 5 is here. Another great issue of this story. I'm really liking these new characters. We were talking Sunday night on Rockin' Robbie Live about what our possible favorite characters of 2020 were so far. And a lot of us mentioned Doyle Dormammu. And really love that character. I like a lot of these characters. And that's what's been really exhilarating about this book is fresh, new, fun characters that don't feel like they're out of place or that they're forced on you or anything like that. It feels natural, it feels organic, it feels fun. It's basically Harry Potter in the Marvel Universe, and Humberto Ramos is doing amazing artwork. Scotty Young's doing a great job building up these characters, this story, this world. I don't like the characterization of Doctor Strange. Sometimes they get to go a little too Tony Stark with him, and that's what they're doing here. But aside from that, everything else was cool, and there's a great setup for issue number 6, which promises to be one of the best issues of Strange Academy yet. All right. It's Amazing Spider-Man time. Issue number 52. Not a bad issue, to be honest with you. We've been waiting 52 issues, basically, for this issue. The actual confrontation with Peter and Kindred. Cool. That's awesome. I liked this issue. It was actually pretty cool. It wasn't that bad. It took a while to really get going, but when it got going, it was cool. It was basically seeing Spider-Man get his ass kicked throughout the whole issue. Maybe that's cathartic. It gives me the sense that Peter Parker is going through the same experience that I'm going through reading this damn book. But this finally builds up to a moment. However, it's taken 52 issues plus to get here. And you ready for this? It's the biggest insult. We had a $10 Amazing Spider-Man just a few weeks ago. The next week we had a $6 Spider-Man because Marvel decided to celebrate 850 issues and then celebrate 50 issues the very next week. And then they've been giving us one every single week and trying to disguise them as point LRs. Look at that. There's an LR out this week. There's a 52 and there's a 52 point LR in 1 week. This is terrible. This is what's happening. Marvel's lining up all of us Spider-Man fans and they're just going around one by one kicking us in the balls. That's really what they're doing. As much as I actually did kind of dig on this issue, it's completely negated by giving us another pointless, meaningless point LR right on the same day. This is so frustrating. Iron Man number 3, though. Iron Man number 3 was okay. Christopher Cantwell, I get what he's trying to do here, and he's doing an okay job. The artwork by Kafu is absolutely gorgeous. I love the artwork in this book. I like the usage of classic Iron Man villains, but it's okay. It's got some clanky parts. It's got some parts that I think are kind of duddy, but it's got some okay stuff. It's got great covers by Alex Ross, but this new Iron Man run's just not doing it for me. Cantwell can do surreal, weird fiction really well, like the book Everything from Dark Horse Comics. But on superheroes, I'm not digging it. But at least we don't have an Iron Man part L23 out this week or something like that, Anyway, let's jump over to IDW. We have a new book called Scarenthood number 1. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I looked at it and I was like, this art is a bit, it's simple art. It seems like it could get the job done. It seems like it's a little verbose. It seems like there's a lot of words. I wasn't looking forward to reading this one. I really enjoyed this book. This was a really good book. It's a light horror story in a way, meaning that it's not too, heavy on atmosphere and mood or anything like that. But it's a horror story that's told through a lens of of like the fear that you have being a parent. You know, I don't 100% know about that. I'm a cat parent, so I guess I can get that. But so I really like this. It's a nice horror mystery, but it's actually rooted about this dude and his daughter. And he's trying to take care of his daughter. He's a single parent or something. They're very, very ambiguous on what's happened with the mother. But I really liked it. I mean, the artwork is not Jim Lee. The artwork is kind of simple. Some would say cartoony, but I think it's really good for this story. The characters are cool. The dialogue is great. This was my sleeper hit of the week. I was really surprised by this one. Took me by surprise. Scarenthood #1 from IDW. It's got a little element of slice of life, but it also has that horror mystery. But what it does so well is it's very impactful at portraying this father's love for his daughter, but also his anxiety at his inability to keep up with everything, and being overwhelmed. Nick Roach, Chris O'Halloran, well done. Scarenhood #1. This is going to be a 4-issue series, I believe. It's $4.99. It's extra size. It'll take you a while to get through. It's meaty. It seems like it's maybe overly verbose on certain pages, but actually the dialogue flows rather well, and I was completely engaged and compelled from very early on in this issue. I had a lot of fun with it. Scarenhood #1. From Image Comics, we have Kick-Ass versus Hit Girl. Now, I stopped reading all the Kick-Ass Hit Girl stuff. It just wasn't doing much for me, but this is Kick-Ass versus Hit Girl, so I figured I might as well check out the first one. This is obviously going to kind of follow more of the Kick-Ass story because Steve Niles and Fruzen are doing this, and they're the ones that do the typical Kick-Ass book. It was all right. It was a well-crafted book, really easy to get through. Even if you haven't been following, you can kind of get in on what's going on, even though I have the benefit of having read like the first 7 or 8 issues of this new Kick-Ass run. But it was all right. It was decent. Now, I haven't been following this stuff, so I'm probably not going to continue to follow it, but I did want to point out for Millar fans that Kick-Ass vs. Hit Girl #1 is out this week, and it wasn't bad. Getting It Together #2 is out. This is a slice of life, 20-something teenage drama rom-com type thing, and I'm really liking it. Sina Grace, Omar Spahi, Ginny Define, and Struble there rounding out the team. I like this book. I thought that issue 2 was even better than issue #1. The characters are very well realized and very real feeling. The situations feel very real. I said when issue 1 came out, they kind of reminded me of me and some of my friends and us going through our 20s and trying to figure out life and relationships and love and loss and all this kind of stuff. And I think it does a great job being very grounded, very real, and at the same time, very entertaining. It's got humorous bits, it's got dramatic bits, it's got intense bits, and I'm loving it. This is a 4-issue series. Second issue is out. Getting It Together #2. Very impressed with that. From Aftershock, we have Miskatonic #1. Miskatonic #1. Are you telling me that this is a new comic book? It's somehow taking Lovecraftian ideas and doing something with them? Yes, this is a like 30s era, 40s era, whatever, something like that, take on like FBI or agents or something investigating some kind of Lovecraftian type stuff. Unfortunately, though, it has nothing as far as characters go. There's nothing compelling to me about this book aside from the usage of Lovecraft ideas. And that's cool. I could read Lovecraft for that. I could read other comic books that have done that. They didn't do anything new, didn't do anything innovative or anything interesting. And to be honest with you, the characters that were introduced to me were rather dull, boring, lackluster. Just couldn't get into this one. It really needed to have something to anchor me in aside from just Lovecraftian ideas. Been there, done that. There's no great characterization. I'm done. Just didn't really like it. And the artwork was just okay in my opinion. Just okay. Hellboy and the BPRD. His name was Hellboy. This is the Seven Wives Club. It's a one-shot. It's written by Mike Mignola with artwork by Adam Hughes. So Adam Hughes doing the interior artwork. That's cool because when he does a Hellboy book, he really brings forth everything he's got as far as sequential storytelling, which is not something you usually see from Adam Hughes because mostly he just does covers. So that was cool. However, this isn't the best Hellboy story. It's a nice one-shot. It's cool, but it doesn't quite have the effect that a lot of the other ones have, but I do love that Mignola cover. So basically, I'm saying that if you ever wanted to check out Hellboy, yeah, you could grab this one, but I wouldn't. Just get Seed of Destruction. Hellboy's literally one of the best comic books ever done. Mike Mignola is one of the best artists ever in comic books, and his name was Hellboy. BPRD. Huh. Anyway, also from Dark Horse, we have True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, National Anthem #2. Loved this issue. I reread issue #1 a couple times. I'm able to get into it a little bit better. This is a prelude to True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, which is now called True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys California. Anyway, Gerard Way, Sean Simon, Leonardo Romero, Jordi Belair. That is a great art team doing great work. This is some of the best Romero work I've seen. The composition isn't as intricate, like as far as the panel layout and design isn't as intricate in some of the stuff that we've seen from him before. However, the artwork itself really is. It's detailed, it's textured, it's got layers to it. This goes well beyond what I think we're used to from Romero, and Jordi Belair is coloring her heart out on this issue, and I loved it. I love this issue. It gets into the teen anxiousness, the teen angsty type stuff. It feels punk rock, it feels fun, it feels in your face, it feels sci-fi, it's got great ideas and concepts that they're just throwing at you, and it's just a fun ride. It's like listening to Danger Days, which that's probably what they're going for. But I'm having a lot of fun with this book, issue #2. Oh my goodness, I loved it, and the artwork in that is so solid. Bill and Ted Are Doomed, issue #3, Station! Here we go, the penultimate issue of the story that's bridging Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey with Bill and Ted Face the Music. You know me, you know Jay Strick, we're loving this book. I loved issue #3, some real funny bits here. Basically, they're trying to book Wild Stallions on a world tour. They go on this metal fest, and they get attacked by this band because they're false metal. You got wild, crazy zaniness. You got a great Station moment here. I'm loving this book. If you're a big Bill and Ted fan, this is pretty much a must-read. It's a lot of fun. Evan Dorkin knows what he's doing. And Roger Langridge on the artwork. Bill and Ted Are Doomed. But not for long. There's only one more issue left. American Ronin #2 is here from AWA Upshot. So this is a world in which there are no longer nations, just corporations. And each corporation, I guess, has somebody called a Ronin. They're basically like an assassin and an adjudicator, something like that. But they have this nanotechnology where they can ingest somebody's DNA and have like an empathic connection to them and understand them, and that's how they sneak around and they get bits and pieces like blood, and they soak it up or something, and now they know where this person goes for lunch on Tuesday afternoons or something like that. They can make the hit. You got Aiko on the artwork, and that's great. Pete Milligan doing a great job balancing cool concepts and interesting characters, keeping it a little bit unclear. It is a bit murky sometimes. It is a bit challenging. The artwork is cool. It's got some great design work. It's got some great layouts. So American Ronin #2, I found rather enjoyable. I liked it. I thought issue #1 was pretty solid, but I thought #2 was a step in a better direction even. So I thought it was pretty solid. American Ronin #2. From Mad Cave Studios, we have Terminal Punks #1. This is written by Matthew Ehrman with artwork by Criswell. It's Shelby Criswell, something like that. I like this one. It's pretty cool. It's not going to be for everybody. If you like indie light fun flair, that's what it is. It's basically about this punk rock band who hasn't even quite decided on their name yet. And they're going to New York City for a battle of the bands. And when they land at the airport, there has been some kind of incident. Some rich guy had a plane with a bunch of wild exotic animals and monsters, and it crash landed into the airport. So when they go into the airport, it's just total chaos, and there are all these crazy wild monsters running around. I thought it had great characterization. I thought it had some really fun one-liners and some great dialogue, some great banter between the characters. It was an interesting concept. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a pretty solid debut from Mad Cave. It wasn't the best thing I'd ever seen from them, but it was by no means the worst, and I'm very excited to see how this story blossoms and how it develops. I really like Ehrman's work, so I'm excited to see where this one's going to go. Terminal Punks #1 was pretty decent. It's not going to blow you away, but I found that it was rather fun, and just look at the back cover. It's pretty fun, and at the same time kind of silly and cartoony at the same time. Then we have The Vein, #2 from Oni Press. I was really pumped for this book. It's Emily Pearson. It's Elliot Rahal. It's vampires, like set in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. I was so 100% down for it, and I really didn't like issue #1. I really didn't like issue #2. This was a big disappointment for me. Issue #1 I thought had potential. I would like to have seen. I was like, well, let's see where it goes. I mean, I just did not like issue #2. It felt a bit unclear. It kind of felt all over the place. It felt like we're missing bits of the story. I can't quite sink my teeth into any of the characters. pun intended, because it's a vampire story. But it's okay. I actually expected a lot more out of Elliot Rahal. It's not that it's super bad comic book, but it just did not do much for me at all. The Vein #2 was a rather much a disappointment, and I probably will be axing it off of the pull list. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? What are you thinking? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Click the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcast blogs and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.